Let's do the English translation for this. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Vasudeva, the author. By regular attendance to classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure, all that is troublesome to the heart will be destroyed. And now the service and representing of God, whose praise and transcend all songs, established as So we're reading from Canto 1, Chapter 8. We're going to be doing verses 1 to 16. We'll focus on verse 7, I believe. So, anyone remember? I don't know if it was actually properly discussed on Friday. Anyone, or maybe it was, maybe I was just dozing off. Anyone remember what happened to Ashwatthama? What was his punishment in the last chapter? He got a barber job. Yeah. Yeah. So what was it? They just left. What did they do? Like half his head was shaved off or whatever? Different parts. Yeah, like random. Okay. Modern. Okay. Modern hairstyle. Yeah, and then and previously in the Mahabharata, there was this one king. What's the name? Start with a J. Jayadratha, right? But Jayadratha, he had attacked Draupadi when they were in exile. He wanted, he was trying to force himself on her. Then she just came in a tight slap, and then he fell, like it's described in the Mahabharata, he fell flat like a tree, like this, just falling off, from the roots were cut off. And then the Pandavas went after him, and then they grabbed him, and then they shaved off his head, and they left 5 long strands, signifying the 5 Pandavas. So they said that these 5 strands will stay on your head like snakes, tormenting you. So he left it there like that for quite some time, did some austerities, got powers. Yeah, yes, bro.
That they cut off the top knot of Jayadratha, and he had a jewel there, which it was described as a repository of his.
Was it Jayadratha or Ashwatthama?
Excuse me, Ashwatthama.
Yeah.
Yes, when they cut the jewel off. Yeah. Anything you can say about that? I mean, it was
the top knot.
Yeah, well, the top knot was, and also the jewel being a repository.
Yeah, he had this jewel on his head, which was, I don't have any more specific information about the jewel, but they're still searching for it. Was that? You get one? Siddhis, okay. Yeah, it had his siddhis, his perfections. I thought you said cities. So it has his perfections. Yeah, Max?
So when they cut his hair, it wasn't just cutting his hair and nobody was reading that, it was actually doing himself.
Yeah. Oftentimes it's understood that, at least with mystics, they carry a lot of powers in their hair, so sometimes they don't cut their hair. Like there was the one case with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There was this tantric who was doing all kinds of mischief, and then they arrested him, put him in jail, but he was still able to do stuff from jail. So then they said cut his hair off. So as soon as they cut his hair off, he basically has lost all his power, shriveled up, and he ended up dying pretty soon after that. Yeah, I believe so. And so that was, oftentimes powers are kept in hair, but he had this jewel also that was repository of all his powers. Yeah. All right. So they did that to him, and they just left him to go, and he was just banished and could roam around the planet pretty much forever. Was it? For what? 3,000 years. 3,000 years. Okay. Just roam around aimlessly, suffering from the loss of his jewel and suffering powers. Yeah. So that's what happened in the end of the last chapter. And now Pandavas and Krishna, they're going to the Ganges. They're really, they're decent people, so they're sad that so many people died. They're not like the Kurus. If the Kurus would have won, the Kauravas probably would have been really jubilant, we defeated them, and just happy to have the kingdom. But with the Pandavas, especially Yudhishthira, he felt really guilty. He felt very guilty that, I am the reason for all this. Like, this is all because, like, I had to fight for my right for the throne, and, I had kingdom, and because of that, millions of people died. So the Pandavas actually, they have this remorse, if not guilt, they at least have this remorse that so many people, and of course they have the remorse that basically like half the family is gone, and because they still even the battlefield when Krishna brought Arjuna to the middle, he was considering that, like, how can we enjoy this kingdom and like half our family is gone. That's the main thing, like why people have houses, or well, sometimes they have huge houses with nobody in it. But the purpose of huge houses or any big property is to just enjoy with your family, your friends, or do activities, just do something there. So that was Arjuna's point, and that like more than half our family is going to be gone. Like, who are we going to enjoy this kingdom with? And so now, they have this remorse that we had to kill our grandfather, our teacher, our cousins, like 100 of them. And now we have our old uncle who's blind and has no sons anymore. So they have a lot of remorse. So we'll see that in this chapter. That's why they go to the Ganges and, they offer the Ganges water back to the Ganges this way.
Structure. Also, the social structure completely destroyed, which was another great fear of Arjuna, that when social structure is destroyed, then everything just becomes chaotic, like we have nowadays.
And because so many Kshatriyas gone, his point was like, who is going to protect everybody else, especially the women in that case. All right, let's read the translations, and then we'll go to the verse in there. You want to start, Nate?
Shuja Goswami said, therefore,
the Pandavas, desiring to deliver water to the dead relatives who had desired it, went to the Ganges with Draupadi. The ladies walked in front.
Having lamented over them and sufficiently offered Ganges water, they bathed in the Ganges, whose water is sanctified due to being mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord.
There sat the king of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Draupadi, all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there.
Citing the stringent laws of the Almighty and their reactions upon living beings, Lord Sri Krishna and the Munis began to pacify those who were shocked and affected.
The clever Duryodhana and his party cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhishthira, who had no enemy. By the grace of the Lord, the recovery was executed, and the unscrupulous kings who joined with Duryodhana were killed by him. Others also died, their duration of life having decreased for their rough handling of the hair of Queen Draupadi.
Lord Sri Krishna caused 3 well-performed Ajameda Yagnas, horse sacrifices, to be conducted by Maharaj Yudhishthira, and thus caused his virtuous fame to be glorified in all directions, like that of Indra, who had performed 100 such sacrifices.
Lord Sri Krishna then prepared for his departure. He invited the son Pandu, after having been worshipped by the Brahmins, headed by Srila Vasudeva. The Lord also reciprocated greetings.
As soon as he seated himself on the chariot to start for Dvarka, he saw Uttara hurrying toward him in fear.
Uttara said, O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality.
Could you reduce the volume?
Oh my Lord, you are all powerful. A fiery iron arrow is coming towards me fast. My Lord, let it burn me personally if you so desire, but please do not let it burn and abort my embryo. Please do me this favor, my Lord.
Sutta Goswami said, having patiently heard her words, Lord Sri Krishna, who is always very affectionate to his devotees, could at once understand that Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya, had thrown the Brahmastra to finish the last life in the Pandava family.
O foremost among the great thinkers, Munis, Shanaka, seeing glaring Brahmastra proceeding toward them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons.
The Almighty Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, having observed that a great danger was befalling his unalloyed devotees, who were fully surrendered souls, at once took up his Sudarshan disc to protect them.
The Lord of Supreme Mysticism, Sri Krishna, resides within everyone's heart as the Paramatma. As such, just to protect the progeny of the Kuru dynasty, he covered the embryo of Uttara by his personal energy.
O Sanaka, glory of Bringu's family, although the supreme Brahmastra weapon released by Ashwatthama was irresistible and without check or counteraction, it was neutralized and foiled when confronted by the strength of Vishnu, Lord Krishna.
O Brahmanas, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. By his own transcendental energy, he creates, maintains, and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn.
So in the previous chapter as well, when Krishna was driving Arjuna on a chariot to fight Ashwatthama, Ashwatthama had killed the 5 sons. And then, Arjuna was chasing after Ashwatthama. What weapon did Ashwatthama throw off at him at that point? Yeah, the Brahmastra. Yeah, so he threw the Brahmastra, and it's like basically, even more devastating than a nuclear weapon. And so he threw the Ashwatthama threw the Brahmastra at Arjuna, and Arjuna kind of, just kind of shocked. And what's the first thing Arjuna did when that happened, when he saw that the Brahmastra was being thrown out at him? Specifically, yeah. He called out for Krishna. He said, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho, Bhaktanam, Abhyankaram. He said, Krishna, Krishna, strong-armed, the Mahabaho, Bhaktanam, Abhyankaram, one who removes the fears of his devotees. So he called out to Krishna. And then, we see that with, this is like the second time Krishna is driving the chariot for Arjuna. And Arjuna has, understood the message of the Gita. Yes, of course he always knew. But, now he's applying, in a sense, like he's applying the Bhagavad Gita. He's actually turning to Krishna right at the moment of, like previously when in the Bhagavad Gita, when he was in the middle of the battlefield, he just had a mental breakdown. He didn't know what to do. He was making it, he was like, I don't know what to do. And just, had a mental breakdown. I basically had he couldn't even hold his bow. But this time when he was in a tight spot, what does he do? He turns to Krishna. And it's interesting to know that he's a warrior. He obviously has the capacity to stop that weapon because he did that later. So, but he didn't just, he was like, all right, the weapon's here, like, and I'm gonna just go ahead and stop this Brahmastra. No, he didn't do that. He actually turned to Krishna first. And so for us as well, whenever something comes towards us, Of course, we could make a strategy. We could do, an MBA that teach that you do a pest analysis, you do a SWOT analysis, you do all those things, and to figure out, what's wrong and how we can solve it, how to look at it, and so forth. But as devotees, the first thing we should do, or as devotees we do, is that we turn to Krishna, like Krishna, like you are Mahabahu, you're strong armed, I do not know what to do, and please help me, please give me support. And so that's the first thing we do as devotees. And then of course, Krishna empowers us, and then we, with all our strength, then we fight whatever's going on. So then the same thing here, when Uttara saw that this weapon's coming towards her child, her unborn child. So Ashwatthama was just such a sore loser. Yeah, such a sore loser. They killed the 5 sons of the Pandavas, and then he was banished. And then he had tried to attack Arjuna with the Brahmastra, and he couldn't succeed in that. Then he got banished, humiliated basically. And also he was allowed to live, which he should be grateful for. But of course not. He turns around and he does what? He tries to kill the last heir of the Kuru dynasty at this point, not just the Pandavas, but the whole Kuru dynasty, because the Kauravas are gone. And it's an unborn child, in the embryo. And so he's specific. The interesting thing about Brahmastra is that it can be pointed to a very specific object. So he's able to point it directly to the embryo, and so Uttara is able to see that, and then she goes running to Krishna and she cries out, "Pahi, Pahi, protect me, Mahayogin, O greatest of the yogis, greatest of the mystics, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Lord of lords, Jagatpate, the Lord of the universe, Nanyam Tvad Abhayam Bhashye, that there's nobody else other than you where fearlessness can reside. Na anyam, there's no one else other than you. Abhayam is fearlessness. Yatra mrityu parasparam, in this material world where there is duality, in this world of death, basically, and duality. So that's her prayer. So same thing like Uttara, whenever we see something, when you have something very dear and it's being attacked, like what do? Just put yourself in Uttara's shoes. She just lost her very young husband. Abhimanyu was Arjuna's son, and she was married to Abhimanyu. So she's Arjuna's daughter-in-law, and in her womb is Parikshit, who's the grandson of Arjuna. And so she just lost her son, her husband. It was again very young, 16-year-old, and now she has this son who she's about to lose. And for a parent, like there's nothing worse than losing their young child. And what to talk of an unborn child, and the only child she's gonna have. And Kalakampur often talks about, or maybe Brahmatirtha, he talks about how kids are like your hearts, just walking out there, like ready to be, who knows what can happen, And so for her, she's in such a calamity. So she cries out to Krishna with this prayer. It's the same thing, in our lives as well. Whenever there's some calamity, when something happens to our Krishna consciousness, or just to anything for that matter, we could, it's the first thing we can do is just cry out to Krishna. And we might have the strength to, battle it. We might have it, or many times we might not have it. And then either cases, our consciousness is that actually Krishna is the absolute, and he's beyond these dualities of this world. All right, so when we recite this verse, just think of this woman Uttara who's praying for her unborn child to be saved, and she's praying with that intensity. She's just running. Actually, she's running towards Krishna, and she's praying out to Krishna to save her son. She's saying, like, the next verse she says is that rather I would burn, rather have the fiery iron arrows coming. Let it burn me personally if you so desire, but please do not let it burn and abort my embryo. Please do me this favor, my Lord. So, Putra Vacha Pahi pahi Mahayogi, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nanyam Twadabhayam Pashye, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam, Pahi pahi Mahayogi, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nanyam Twadabhayam Pashye, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam, Pahi pahi Mahayogi, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nanyam Twadabhayam Pashye, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam, Pahi pahi Mahayogi, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nanyam Twadabhayam Pashye, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam, Pahi pahi Mahayogin, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Anyam Twadavayam Pashe, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam, Pahi pahi Mahayogin, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nanyam Twadavayam Pashe, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam, Pahi pahi Mahayogin, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nanya Twadavayam Pashe, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam. Let's do it together. Uttara Vacha, Uttara said, Pahi, Pahi, protect, protect, Mahayogin, the greatest mystic, Deva, Deva, the worshipable of the worshipped, Jagat Pate, O Lord of the universe, Na, not, Anyam, anyone else, Twat, than you, Abhayam, fearlessness, Pashye, do I see, Yatra, where there is, Mrityu, death, Parasparam, in the world of duality. Together, translation. Uttara said, O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one from the clutches of death in this world of duality. Anyone like to read the purport? Max.
This material world is the world of duality, in contrast with the oneness of the absolute realm. The world of duality is composed of matter and spirit, whereas the absolute world is complete spirit, without any tinge of the material qualities. In the dual world, everyone is falsely trying to become the master of the world, whereas in the absolute world, the Lord is the absolute Lord, and all others are his absolute servitors. In the world of duality, everyone is envious of all others, and death is inevitable due to the dual existence of matter and spirit. The Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. One cannot save himself from the cruel hands of death in the material world without having surrendered himself at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Surrender, teacher. So, there's all kind of calamities that come in our lives, but we normally don't get calamity every day or every moment, but we always get something that irks us, that kind of annoys us. And so I would say you can put them in these categories also, that when something comes up, what do you do but to call out to Krishna? And what are some things that annoy you? What are some things that annoy you, Kunti? when they don't let you on the flight.
Oh my God, yes.
Like yesterday, I had to get a different flight. But yeah, what else? Plumbing. When the plumbing in over the 100 house breaks constantly. Yeah. What are some other things that annoy you? The washing machine. Yeah. It's been broken. Oh, it broke again. All right, go into. More. What else? Oh, come on. Why does Jonathan annoy you, Max? Was that? Oh my God! You know this is live, right? The whole world can record it for time immemorial. What annoys you, Jonathan?
He's an instrument of his karma.
It's an instrument of his annoyment. Yeah.
What annoys me is, people don't lead by example, and they want you to do as they say, not as they do.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yep. All right. What else? Any other? What else? What annoys you, Carmen? My jokes. Anything else?
I guess when people go through exactly.
Not there?
Like not there, just something, and then you're like expected to see it in the morning or something, and see how it is.
Oh yeah, when people don't put it back where it's supposed to be. That's true.
Dishes in the sink.
Dishes in the sink. It never annoys anyone else. What's wrong with this guy? Yeah. What else? Anything else that annoys you? Annoys me a lot of things. That's true.
When students don't show up for lunch.
When students don't show up for lunch, oh, where is everybody? We cooked all this prasadam. But yeah, what else? What annoys you, Prema?
When I can't be perfect.
You can't be perfect. Oh wow. Oh, you're perfect, Prema. Perfect Prema. That's gonna be your name now. PP. Yeah.
Students come just at the end of the program.
Or like group of 20 Indian students come at like 8:25. Yeah. Oh, so what annoys you, Gopijana bro? Yourself. Come on. Yeah. What about you? Same answer for you also, Tulasi? What annoys you, Gopi? No. Oh yeah. Anything else? Yeah, there's so many things in this material world of dualities that annoy us. Material life can just be one annoyance after another after another. I remember before I was a devotee, in high school, every day just felt so, it was just like a drudgery. Either a drudgery or like maybe hopeful that maybe today will be better. Or like maybe, and then at the end of the day, some days I would be like, oh yeah, today, there weren't that many things that went wrong today. That's great. And then next you're like, oh yeah, a lot of things went wrong today. It's just, what's being pointed out in this verse, there was nothing absolute. Everything was just so relative. Like, maybe today I'll have a day free from annoyances. And some days it was like that, but many days were not like that. And I was still in high school, I was still a kid, but there were plenty things that still, were bugging me from, there's so many things growing up in India that can be annoying. But yeah, mostly teachers though. But yeah, this material world is full of dualities. There will always be something that you like or something that you do not like. It's the nature of this world. There's really no way getting around it. There's a verse, I believe it's in the 4th canto, maybe 5th canto. There's this whole description about basically the nature of this world. And this one verse says how you have a heavy load on your head, and when your head starts aching, and you're walking with the load, and then what do you do next? Like, what's an obvious guess? Yeah, what do? You put it on your shoulder, or or if like I was carrying a big jug of water the other day, I was carrying it in a long way, and it was hurting this hand, left hand. So what did I do? I put in my right hand. It's like that's the only thing you can do. You got to carry this load of this material, material things material karma we have. And so it's on your head. Nope, all right, it's hurting now. You put it in your shoulder, left shoulder, right shoulder, and then right shoulder, and so forth. And it's pretty much what one can do. And so how it applies, comes out in this world is that, say you want a healthy body, you want to be in good shape. What do? Well, you work out, you eat properly, and you do all those things. And one can say those things are sufferings. Because who does not want to eat 20 gulab jamuns? Who does not want to do that? I would want to do it if I could. I would die at this. That could turn into suffering too. Yeah, like happiness and then distress, right? Or who does not who wants to be like, I really want to eat restrictedly, in a very restricted manner. Who wants to do that? But you do it because if you don't do it, then the health is gonna go bad. It's gonna go downhill. But if given a choice, if Krishna's like, you could eat whatever that you want, and you won't gain any weight, or your blood pressure is not going to go up, or whatever else, your heart's gonna get stronger every gulab jamun you eat, and if Krishna gives you this boon, you're like, I'll take it, then I can eat unrestrictedly, I can do whatever I want, so, and then, or the lazier you are, the more money you're gonna get in life. The more you sit around, the more chances of getting married you have, or more money you'll get. If these options were available, everybody would just lie around, keep eating. But no, the world does not work like that. There's duality, and there's always happiness and distress. If you want to get rich in this world, you got to work hard, or you got to come up with something, more or less, And there's so many people in today's age, they want to come with that perfect side hustle, that perfect passive income, or else, And I guess people have the karma for it. They've done in previous lives, they have done enough pious activities that they have to work very little in this life. And and they get a lot of wealth, or they don't really take care of their body, but they live to to be 100 years. But that's always there. But in general, the general principle is there's always some kind of pain one has to take to gain. The first Prime Minister of India very famously said, "No pain, no gain." But and then Prabhupada said he would come back as a dog in his next life. But it's true. That's the law in this materialist, in this world of duality. If you do not take pain in some way or the other, there will be no gain. So, but in the absolute realm, as devotees, you go to Krishna and you surrender to Krishna, and the result is not that then you're going to get super wealthy and puffed up, whatever. But the result is that you are going to be delivered from the clutches of birth and death. And that's Uttara's point, that in this whole material world, there is nobody that I see where I can find fearlessness. So when you study the Srimad Bhagavatam end to end, and when you really start realizing who Krishna is, you will gain fearlessness. Have you ever experienced fearlessness in your life? Has it ever? What's it like? Or if anybody would like to share, yeah, Jonathan, Mike.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's like a healthy feeling, but I felt at times where I didn't care if I lived or died.
Yeah, times that, yeah.
Doing Vrindavan Parikram, and there's 100 cars and rickshaws, and they're all coming in the same direction.
Yeah.
But you're just walking through it, and I wasn't scared. I didn't, and then most of the people I was with, they said the same thing. They're not scared because you feel so protected in Vrindavan. Even if something were to happen, you're in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Those moments during book distribution where
during book distribution, yeah. Yeah, especially, there's a certain amount of fear in book distribution, usually. But yeah, what else? Any other feelings of fearlessness in context of Krishna? Gopaji, no proof? So, Mike, maybe that one. Nate, could you give a mic?
Going off of what Govinda said, sometimes in this movement we have an opportunity to do amazing services for Prabhupada and help other souls. And I've just many times after doing something like that or having the opportunity to be blessed with taking part in these kind of services, as we do here at Krishna House, then I just get this feeling like this is so special and Krishna is so happy about what's happening that I can die right now and everything will be fine, everything will be perfect. I think that's like real fearlessness, It's like you don't really care about the future. What's the phrase that you gave, Prabhu? And the message you sent to me? Yeah. And the translation?
You can live, you can die, it doesn't matter.
Because it's just good results all around when you're close to Krishna and serving his servants.
And then Max.
Oh, like feeling fearlessness. It's like when you have a shelter, that's when you feel that it's all right no matter what happens. And I felt that no matter what, sometimes relationships or my dealings with people go not as I expect, or I feel like I've been misunderstood, or what if the misunderstanding might hamper all relationships, but still I have a little faith that no matter who misunderstands me, my spiritual master won't misunderstand me. So that makes me fearless that there's at least one person who will definitely understand me.
Thanks. Max, you have a mic there?
When you walk on campus with your man skirt and your face paint and your purple handbag and not worried about the looks you get.
Yeah, that's real fearlessness. Yeah, that's funny. I remember when I went to New York for the first time, I was staying at the Bhakti Center. And of course, New York, it's like people wear all kinds of outfits, so it's not a huge deal. But I remember walking out in the dhoti and kurta, I was looking at the sea of people in New York wearing all other kind of outfits. And I was thinking this is fearlessness, just going out in New York. I was there for the first time, and you've heard about Prabhupada being there and preaching, yes, this is fearless, just going out preaching, wearing my Hare Krishna outfit. Yeah, so I can relate to what you're saying. I just remember thinking that. What else? Any other anecdotes of fearlessness and Krishna consciousness? Yeah.
What Nitai said, the idea that if you're ever having a problem, there's so many people you can go to solve that problem that you don't have to feel like you're all by yourself doing it.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Let's take it, bro.
When hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam consistently and daily, it is very satisfying, and all your troubles kind of disappear.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Yeah, and I think I mentioned this one story before. I don't know if I put into this group or not, but a while ago I was in Israel for a study abroad semester, and I used to go for this outreach program, this what's it called, the Bhakti Vriksha, and they're all Russians actually, all Russian Jews. So the whole thing was in Russian, and sometimes they would translate it for me, sometimes they wouldn't. But I would just sit there, just to get my weekly devotee sangha, and that's because that was the only thing going on in the city. And but this one night I was going back to my dorms, and it was getting really late, and there was this one Muslim guy waiting with me, and we started talking, and then he finally asked me what are you, what religion? And I said I'm a Hindu. Because I figured he didn't look like somebody who would know what a Hare Krishna is. I just said I'm a Hindu. And he was like, do you worship trees or do you worship God? I was like, I worship God. I think coming from India, there's a lot of strife between Hindus and Muslims. So, and I was still kind of fresh off the boat. It was only a few years. So, you have this fear like, oh my God, is he gonna kill me now? Don't worship his God. And I was just patiently waiting, and then we got on the bus, and then I was just asking him questions about him, so he was just telling me about his girlfriend, and how he wants to move to Georgia, the country, not the state. And then I gave him this. So I used to do this thing. I had this Krishna.com mantra card, and it had the Ma mantra, and I would just write my contact on it and give it to people if I wanted to keep in touch with them. Also that way, I would give them the Ma mantra. So I had one of those, and I think my contact was on it. So I just didn't think of it, and I gave it to him, and he looked at. There's a picture of Radha Krishna on it, and he looked at it, and he goes, "I thought you worship God. Who's this?" And then I was like, oh, he's asked who Krishna is, so I must honestly answer that question. So then I started explaining. And I started explaining it in the context of, there's that verse in the 2nd chapter, how there's 3 aspects to the absolute truth, So I was like, well, there's 3 aspects to this. How does it go, the Sanskrit? Yeah, Vadanti Tattva Vidas, yeah. There are 3 aspects to the absolute truth. There's the personality of God, the supreme personality of God, there's the super soul, there's the Brahmajyoti and so forth, the impersonal aspect. I started explaining, and I said, this is the supreme personality of God, Krishna. It's like, okay. And then I describe what Hare means, because the Ma mantra was there, what Hare means, what Krishna means, and actually I started explaining what Krishna means. It means all attractive, since he had asked who Krishna is. And so he was listening, and then it got, my fear kind of went away when I started just preaching to him. So I felt like, when you just sincerely preach, fearlessness just comes, And then he asked me, how do you say, I actually started getting, just playing around, got a little more confident. So I said, do you want to know how you say thank you in Sanskrit? He said, how? And I said, you say Gauranga. He goes, Gauranga, in the bus. And then he goes, oh, because he asked me what language it is. And I said, Sanskrit. So then I started saying these words, And then he asked me, how do you say, if I go to my friend and I say, I want to fight with them, how do I say that? And he said, Nityananda. He goes, Nityananda. And then he asked, if I go to a girl and I say, I love her, how do I say that? I said, it's so easy. You say, Radha. You say, Radha. So I started saying all these names, and I figured, he might as well go preach the names of Krishna to his other friends and my girlfriends, and then this other friend of his came in the bus, and she came like we stopped at the downtown, so she came on the bus, and she looked like she came back from a party, and they started talking in Arabic, I guess, and or Hebrew maybe, and then he pulled out the Ma mantra card and gave it to her. And he goes, look, it's Krishna. He is so beautiful. And I'm like, oh my God, like what happened here? And then she starts reading the whole Ma mantra really loud in the bus. Like, yeah, Israelis are really vocal people. They're not shy. So she's like, Hare Krishna, the whole thing, And then he starts explaining Krishna. I started explaining, and then he like cut me out. He's like, wait, Krishna means this, Rama means this. I'm like, okay. And it's funny, I'll never forget her face when she was reading the Ma mantra. Her eyes got big, and it looked like life came back to her. Like she didn't. Yeah, it just was amazing how her eyes got big and everything. And like when this little soul transversing this universe comes in touch with Krishna finally after a long time, it's like life comes back to them. But yeah, that was one of my incidents of fearlessness. It was one day for Nishinga Chaturdashi actually. So I went back to my dorm and I prayed to my deities, and I was like, oh, how do I go? Actually, I was doing kirtan and dancing by myself because it was so ecstatic. These 2 souls somehow came in touch with Krishna. But yeah. All right, it's 8:35. I'm gonna stop here. Any last comments or thoughts? Oh wow, bunch. Okay. Vaninathu and then Max.
I have a question. And then, well, I'll give a comment first. Just in terms of applying what this, as you said at the beginning, applying the philosophy and the situations that arise. I was reminded of a situation here in Gainesville where one of the women in the ashram, when we were over on Depot Avenue, she had spinal meningitis. That's an infection of the spinal cord fluid. and this was the second time she had it. And she was pregnant at the time. And they have to operate on you, and you have to be conscious. They stick this is what, at that time, you had to stick a needle into your spinal column. You could be paralyzed, all sorts of ramifications, etc. And she was describing how she was chanting at that time. I remember it very well. I was outside and I think she was just started to talk, and she was just, and I just happened to be in earshot. I don't think it was directed to me personally. But in any case, she was just saying that the chanting that I'm doing now is not the same that I was chanting when I was lying there, about to go through this procedure, etc. And she made it through that. And also the persons who had it twice, the mortality rate was something north of 50%. Most people die if you get it a second time. Mm-hmm. So all of these things were just against her. It produced a different type of chanting. So that was just a comment. But I have a question. So this person, Uttara, approached Krishna to save her embryo. So is she approaching Krishna with a material desire?
I knew somebody would ask. Well, there's that verse, akama sarva kamava. I mean, even if it's a material desire, which, of course, they're all great devotees and they're all surrendered souls. And I think the next verse says that. So they have no shelter but Krishna, even if it's a spiritual material calamity. Even in Vrindavan, we see when the Indra was throwing the hailstorm on the Brajavasis in Nectar Devotion, Swami talks about it, that the Brajavasis had no one, they didn't know what to do but cry out to Krishna for protection. So as devotees, like in times of calamities, we should not think, one need not think this is a material desire, my body, I need not protect my body. But also in her case, she wanted to protect the heir of the whole dynasty, who would then protect the world. And of course, then the Srimad Bhagavatam came with Parikshit Maharaj and everything. So, I mean, even if it was any material intention, still it's glorious that she actually goes to Krishna. That would be my thought on it. Any thoughts or comments on that?
I forget the particular verse. It's in the first canto, Jiveti Yavata, that it talks about that healthy life and self-preservation are not actually counted as material desires, just in terms of that. So that's one consideration. But your point is well.
Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, Max, did you have?
This question's a little superfluous in regards to the verse that we're reading, but there was an earlier verse when it was talking about they were going down to the Ganges, the women walked in front. I just like knowing why they do what they do in this Vedic culture. Is there some significance behind that, or as to why they do that?
Well, you think women would be in the middle then between men on both sides, right? That's for protection. But I know in India, normally women are given high importance in spiritual activities, and sometimes they actually go forward and do it. That's one thought on it, but I don't see specifically anything in the purport referring to why they were in the front. Yeah, maybe we can look into it. But that was one thought. Sometimes the women they actually inaugurate, a ceremony because they're just considered so holy and so forth. That's one thought. Yes, bro.
You like to have
women front. Yeah.
Because it's easier to protect.
I see. Okay, so maybe it is about protection then. Yeah. Okay, in the front. Yeah, what did you say, bro? For protection. Okay, so I guess for protection, you just keep an eye on they're going fun. Okay. All right. One last thought. But whenever somebody comes and annoys you, you think of this verse and you remember Krishna. The duality of this world has come as this person personified. Please save me. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Didn't you say that they sacrifice horses for Krishna?
Oh yeah, it's a whole. other thing, but yeah, there are these sacrifices that, did it say that, the Ashwamedha Yagya? There are all these sacrifices that kings used to do back in the day, but the thing is with these yagyas, since the Brahmanas were so perfect, the horse would actually, or the animal for that matter, would get this like a renewed body. And so that's why they don't do it anymore in this age. Well, they're not supposed to do it in this age because the Brahmanas are not as perfect, so that the animals could actually get a renewed body. But that used to be. Oh yeah, it's often as old. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Grantha Bhagavatam ki. Mahaprasade Govinde.